Hey everybody, welcome back to the video. And this is one of those videos where I talk about a car that I've sold or am selling, and we can kind of explain. So the garage right now is changing some things. Right now you can see the Corvette back here. There's an empty spot. I had the Range Rover outside, the M3's outside, and I'm selling the Tesla. Got a buyer for it. It's probably going to go pretty soon, so let me explain about the car. I know I had other videos prior to this explaining some things about how much I like the car, why the car makes a great commuter, but I never spoke about the downfalls, and there are some things about it that my experience it led to this. All right, let's get going. All right, first, I like some things about the car. The space is good. It's comfortable. Obviously, you have the best charging network out there. But there's some things about it that just didn't work out. It may not be everybody's situation. Before the Tesla haters get on the video and start hitting the thumbs down, this is not a Tesla hate video. This is just me saying the car didn't work for me. It may work for you, it may work for someone else, but it didn't work for me. All right, so before he thumbs down, this is not me bashing the Tesla. It's just me from what I want from a car. I tried it out. Some of the things I overlooked, and I thought it might be all right, but it just didn't work out. So here's some things why I sold the car, okay? So for me, it's number one, the driving dynamics. Now, like I said, talk about the car being a good family, that was a family car, commuter car. It does that well. But when you buy a car with a performance label on it, the car that's sold as performance, I'm expecting something with performance other than just a quick 0 to 60 time. Yeah, it was great to experience that. Like I said, there was no car out there where a gasoline car, I feel like, would take me off the line. So if I want to pull up to that left lane that was going to run out at the next stoplight, I was confidently knew I could pull up there and know that that car, that Corolla or that Camry or whatever, that truck next to me is not going to outpull me. Okay? Any sports car that pulls up next to me, I know, for example, I had, not this Corvette, but I had a Corvette try to take me from a dig, and he quickly found out that he wasn't going to do it. So the speed and everything is good. I don't have any complaint with the 0 to 60. What I don't like so much is the handling, and this could be just the byproduct having an EV with the heavy batteries. Handling wasn't quite there what I like. I spend a lot of time in the car. I commute with the car, so of course I want to drive a little spiritedly sometimes. Also too, which I'm gonna get into, is I do call for hospitals, so I have to come back. And with that being said, sometimes I am driving a little bit quicker. I like having a car that is responsive in all dynamics, not just acceleration. I want the brakes to respond. I want the feedback, okay? Brakes in particular, I just felt that I had to really push on them hard to get some type of response, but it felt like even with the ABS kicking in, I've had instances where I'm coming up to for example, a light, and I'm thinking, I'm not gonna make this. It feels like the car is not gonna slow down. What's happening? Why isn't the car scrubbing the speed off? Don't know. I never experienced this in Corvette, never experienced that in M3, never experienced that in the X5M, even the Range Rover. I don't know what it was, but like I said, there were times where I'm like, I don't think this car is gonna stop in time. So I don't know, maybe it's just the brakes, not being used because you're using so much regen. But the next thing, because I said this video's gonna be long, so I gotta cut this thing short. I guess the brakes lacked the initial bite. Just put it that way. When you press the brake pedal, you want just that feeling that there's some braking responsive time in there. Now, the next thing was the charging. So the charging was good at first. Now, the range was rated at 315 miles of range. Obviously, I'm not gonna buy the long range. Like I said, I wanted something a little more sporty, a little more performance, had the Brembo brakes and the carbon fiber spoiler things. I mean, you see the cars that I have and the cars I drive. Why would I want that? the non-performance. The range wasn't what I was expecting to get. So I'm thinking 350 miles is enough for me. So I drive 45 miles one way. Let's just say 50 miles, or let's say 100 miles, 100 a day. And that's okay. That's if I work like a 9-to-5 job, that's still enough for me to get to work, come back. And before I would top off at the work, that was fine. I would charge 90%, every day. And like I said, a charger at the house, I could just plug it in. And it did it fine. Like I said, I just plugged this in. I don't know if you can see it here, but I had the wall connector, and it gave me enough range to get to work and back. But like I said, I do call. There are times where I might have to come back. I may not hit time to plug it back in and take that charge, in which I'm gonna cover that a little bit later as far as using the wall charger at the house. But Tesla changed from 90%, and they said after 3 months having the car, they said 80% is where you should be charging. So 80% put me at 240 miles was what was showing. Of course, I never go by that, I go with percentage. So this 80%, I would burn probably around 15 to 20% each way, depending on how cold it was. If it was a colder day, I could be on a 20% range. If it was a warmer day, maybe that 15%. And that's me driving slowly. I would say slowly, by no more than 30 miles an hour. I usually set my cruise control at 68. But it just wasn't quite enough, because I knew that by the second day, I needed to plug in either here or at work. But then it became a problem when the superchargers started becoming more crowded after work. So I had to charge at work, which my job provides charging. 4 hours limit. But then there's people who are abusing, which is, like I said, not fault of the car, but it's just one of the things that I had experienced with an EV is there are some people who are just abuse the system as a whole, and there were a lot of cars that were just left there in the charging spot, and the whole my entire shift. Well, I said, you know what? I could top off at a supercharger. Let me go after work and plug it in. Well, then I go to navigate supercharger and see that there's like a 10, 15-minute wait time. All right, no big deal. There's plenty of superchargers around. That's why I bought the Tesla, because I don't want to be stuck to just 1 or 2 chargers in the area. So I drove to the next one. I was like, well, let's go to one closer to my house. I could plug it in. I was on call that night. And literally, as I backed up to the charger, I got paged to come back to work. So I had no other choice. I was at 2%. So I plugged in, sat there for about 5 minutes to give me 20%. And that's good thing about supercharger and in the charging curve, I was able to get 20%, unplugged and doing the work. Got to work, of course, with nothing. And then I needed to charge again to get back home. Because now we're at about midnight at this point. So I needed to get back home. So long story short, it didn't work. I needed to go to supercharger. So I'm like, at this point, do I take enough to get me back home to plug in my wall connector, or I take an extra charge in case I get called back in? So of course, I took the extra charge to get me some in case I need to turn back around. And it just took up maybe 30 minutes, because I needed the burn charge to come here and then have the buffer to go back, and then, whatever it is. And you're gonna say, well, you have the connector at home, why don't you just plug it in? Well, first of all, PG&E, we have peak rates. So my cheaper rates doesn't start to midnight, okay? I can get called back to work before that. So while the car's plugged in, waiting for that scheduled time for midnight, if I had to unplug it and it didn't get a charge, well, now I had to unplug the car, wrap my cord up. I got to move that car out the way because it doesn't have enough battery. I got to park it on the side. Then I got to grab the key, back out the gasoline car, take that one, and then go. So let's move on past the charging. Let's talk about the other thing. Since we're talking about charging, since we're talking about the PG&E, the cost of electricity, because I thought, this doesn't want to work. Let me switch my rate to more of a time of use. So I'm not getting those super high peak rates, because of those lower rates where I'm not really using, not everybody's home, doesn't do me any good. So I got something more stabilized. But of course, PG&E doubled the rates. So, I made videos in the past speaking about how you don't really buy, if you're buying a Tesla to save money on gas, you're not really gonna save that much money on gas if you're gonna supercharge. Only way you save money is if you charge at your house. Now, at the time, supercharging costs were about 40 something cents, So, it could add up pretty quickly. When you think about equivalent tank of gas, how much you'll spend. But now that our rates doubled, and of course, supercharger rates went up, and gas sort of stayed the same, my window of savings is out the door. And then, of course, I didn't buy this car to save money. I bought this car for the convenience of not having to stop for gas. But what I'm finding myself, and what's been frustrating, is I'm stopping the charge. Like, some days I just want to go home and charge it before I get back home. Because, again, my needs, my job. If I just had a set hours, it wouldn't have been an issue. So I probably had to go back to gas. So charging, having to use public chargers, the people abusing the public chargers, the crowds at public chargers, the cost of electricity. It all kind of revolves around charging. Infrastructure really is what the main thing is about. I even expect out a new one. I thought, there were some other things about the car. No ventilated seats. Obviously I talked about how it looks kind of similar to the other Model 3s. But the new one was, and I know people talk about, it's got the new bumpers, got the brake cooling. But I don't have brake cooling too. At least I thought it looks like it does have the vents that go in from the bumper. But anyway, the new one was, priced the same. And I, submitted an offer to trade my Tesla in. I figured Tesla would give me a good trade-in value. Because Tesla, they can always add on the full self-driving package, and it doesn't cost them anything for them. It's really a software update. The car is already built in with the full self-driving. So I thought this would be great. I could probably upgrade my car. I imagine they'll give me a good trade-in value for my car. Tesla gave me one of the lowest trade-in values out of anybody. And I felt that was a huge slap in the face, considering that, yes, while the market has corrected itself, while EVs technically don't hold their value, Tesla sort of have been leading this decline of EVs. And let me explain. I bought my car in March 2023. It was $56,000, which means it didn't qualify for tax credit because I don't qualify for tax credit. So it was no point for me trying to spec a car, trying to stay below that $55,000 limit because I don't get the credit. So I bought the black, which is $1,500 option, and then the white interior is another $1,000 option. And I tried to find used ones. I made videos about this in the past. I'll link it up here if you want to see it. How I was shopping for used, and the used just seemed about $45,000, $50,000, even for like a car that had 20,000, 30,000 miles on it. I couldn't really get one that the used one. It might as well just make more sense to buy a new one if I had time to wait. If you were in a hurry, I can see where people buying used. Tesla's always been the one to hold a value, and this has been like that for the past, for years. There's been articles published on this, how EVs drop in value, but Tesla just seems to be a stay above. Partial because at the time, a few years ago, EVs were Volt, like there wasn't many cars that were electric. And then to get a luxury car that had a decent amount of range, luxury amenities, Tesla was the only one. So I could see why they had their value, they held their value. But guess what? Their cars have sort of, gotten long in the tooth. The cars have been aged well. Now I knew this going into it. And I knew that there was a new Model 3 around the corner, but I didn't want to wait for it based upon, I know how Elon does. Like he'll announce a car, and then you might not see that car for 5 years down the road. So I was not going to wait for the new one, latest, greatest, because I could wait in 5 years. All right? Not knowing it'll come out a few months later. But yeah, Tesla was the only one that had all that stuff. No competition from anybody else. But guess what? It seemed like within the past couple years, BMW i4, Volkswagen ID4, Mercedes EQ line, you have Rivian, you have Lucid, you got the Volvo EVs, you got the Polestar, and all of a sudden, I think that allowed people to kind of maybe other cars out there I want to try. Maybe, not just Tesla. So Tesla, I think, brought the prices down. For one, make the cars qualify for tax credit, but second of all, to make sure that their cars are always staying number one selling. For one, they had the biggest profit margin, so of course they could afford to drop the prices down. But when a manufacturer lowers a price, that's bad for business. And I said this before. I should have taken my own advice and not bought one because I didn't think the prices were going to fall anymore. I thought they were just going to put it back in line pre-pandemic prices and just leave it the way it is. I didn't think they're going to keep playing with it more. Just to give you an idea, I've seen my exact car, probably like in the fall of last year, in the inventory as Tesla's trying to push it, sell for $44,000 brand new. So how would it make me feel paying $57,000 and then someone else can buy it for $45,000, almost like $10,000 difference, and they get a tax credit. So then that even brings the car even cheaper when they go to trade in, because then now they're, you know how this tax credit cars just seem to be softer in the market anyway. So trading value just got hit hard. Anywhere I was going, it seemed like the car was losing value. I tried to sell it privately, and it's just every week the car was losing about $1,000. I wasn't driving the car. It's like this car is a huge depreciating asset. I don't buy cars to flip. I don't buy cars as an investment. Cars aren't an investment. Notice cars aren't an investment. But I also don't hold on to cars that are extremely weak on the market, that you're just tanking in value day by day. Unless I just want to keep that car for whatever reason. But there are a number of reasons why. I could make this video longer if you want to. I got a few minutes, I guess I could. Let's say, for example, lose my job, wife loses her job. We need to sell, and we need to keep our money and sell everything. But guess what? This Tesla that we have is so far upside down because the prices had dropped on them. Manufactured up the price, and it just flooded the market. Plus, Tesla's only been scaling and building more of them. So they're just adding more and more volume to it. Then Hertz decided to buy 20,000 Model 3s and said it didn't work for them. So now they're going to sell them back on the market. And there's just a ton of cars in the used market that the dealerships really don't want them because they just sit in the lot. So of course you're just getting lowballing your trade. But Tesla, of all people, I felt like would have given me a higher value to buy another one of cars. I really didn't want to buy another one considering the price and stuff. But I said, you know what? There's some things I like about it. Maybe it would be a little better. But after that value, I said, no, I'm not doing another Tesla again. I hate it. I hate to say it. But I would never buy a Tesla considering they play with prices like that. That right there doesn't give me any confidence moving forward. What if BMW decided to do that? What if they said, okay, you buy this X3, and they decided to just drop the price $10,000, $15,000, and your neighbor gets to buy one cheaper? That only hurts the value. That only hurts people who have it. That only keeps them stuck in the car. That's not good. That is the worst thing you could do for anybody. And it's not just because, that just goes to show you how selfish that the manufacturer is when they do this, because it's only for themselves. I don't know why the lights popped off. Motion detection. There we go. But that's just going to show you that it's only for themselves because the customer is the one you should be taking care of. Other manufacturers don't do this. They offer incentives, maybe, interest or cash back, but they'll never just take the MSRP and drop it because that's just the worst thing you can do. People, like I said, in my situation, I can pay the cash, sell the car, and get out from the car. My choice. Okay, I'll eat the loss, eat the $10,000 that I lost in the car. But there's going to be people out there who are going to have a financial situation, and they probably bought this car in confidence, knowing that this car could hold value, and it doesn't. And it's not just a car that typically loses value, but to lose over half of it, like more than half in just a year time span, that is probably the worst depreciating car I've ever seen. Also, the perks having an EV kind of diminished. When I first got it, there was preferred parking, airports, some places, you go out to eat and there's, some venues, they'll say, oh, EV parking right here, you can park there, and, there's some of them offer free charging, you can plug in. But more and more as I'm finding is those chargers are broken, or those spots are, most likely the spots are just filled. And they're always filled with another Tesla. That just show you that how many people just have Teslas. And honestly, I just hate seeing my same car over and over again. Every stoplight, every intersection, there's a freaking Tesla. Oh, there's another Tesla. It's California, but I'm hearing, like, you know, from people down the East Coast saying that more and more Teslas are popping up in their area. But it's just becoming one of those Camrys, one of those Altimas. It's just a common car that you're gonna see. And the thing is, there's just nothing much you can do differently. And like I said, the new performance looks different. It looks great. I like the new performance. I like some of the things they talk about the performance. But like I said, the 0-60, I watched some videos already. I've seen some drag strip, some people, some other content creators showing off what the car can do. But I'm still not quite impressed, because mine can pull strong up to about 80 miles an hour and it starts to fade away. That one seems to be pulling pretty strong up to about, like, from what I've seen in the videos, about like 115. And it does seem to fade at the 110, 115, it just seems to just fall off. Just about as fast as, you know, mine did. And like I said, I think it ran mine at like 11.5 at 117 miles an hour.
30, 60. Quarter mile. 130.
New one was 10.9 at the 122. So a little bit quicker, but of course, that's at a higher state of charge. My issue too is I'm not running at 100% state of charge, I'm not running 90% state of charge all the time. If I leave it at 80% like I'm supposed to do, then I'm within my first part commute, I'm at 60%. Then I come home at 40%. So then if I need to step on acceleration, I'm not getting that response time that I like. The car isn't consistent, it's not responding like I want it to respond. The battery's cold, I want to know what the car's gonna do each time I'm gonna do it. Not like, the guy to play these factors into place, like what the battery charge is like, what the battery temperature is like. Those are a lot of factors that go into the acceleration of the car. The battery has to be a certain temperature, it's gonna be warmed up, but not too hot. You know, like a car like this, a gasoline car, while it's hot outside, it may suffer when in extreme heat, but normal heat is gonna be fine because the car runs hotter than the actual ambient temperature. In the cold, it runs better. EVs do the opposite. Cold doesn't run that well. Heat does better, but then too hot, it doesn't go, you know, well. The battery has to be a certain temp. And then also, like I said, the state of charge variation between the cell when you're at those speeds, it doesn't want to perform. It doesn't want to perform like I want it to. Like I said, those times are only like, I know they're only be when the battery's great. But people want to say, well, why don't you discharge 100%? Well, that's the thing I make. If I want full range, do I have to charge it to 100%, knowing that I'm hurting the battery and degrading it even more? Or if I'm going to complete this car long term, like if you're going to say that, keep the car long. I know that's going to be common. Why don't you just keep the car and run it long term? If I keep it long term, that means I'm only able to use 80% because that's what's daily, and I'll be using this car daily. 90%, 100%, and then I have a battery failure. Well, Tesla can look in the thing and says, well, you've been charging it above. So I'm trying to decide if I want to damage the battery for the sake of extra range or just protect the car and have to deal with the extra charging. It's like having a gasoline car and I can't use the full tank. I got to use 3/4 of it, but unfortunately I can't use the very bottom of it. I got to use just the meat of it. Like I said, this car is a good car for maybe someone who's 9 to 5 person, or a person who just doesn't have a short drive. Or maybe like, even my wife, like, she doesn't want it, but she really just has a 10-minute commute and it'll be, she could probably use a wall outlet in her sake and it would be fine. So she would need the fast charging. So that's it. That's why I'm saying bye to Tesla. So, sneak peek. You want to see it? All right, I'm putting it in the video. It's be real quick though. All right, you see it? Okay, good. Don't say anything. Don't put no comment in there. Tell me what you got. Do what I got. Just keep it quiet. The video coming soon. Thanks for watching.